Hello, everyone. My name is Denora Meyer, and I am on the counseling team. I'm one of the assistant directors, and I am the career counselor and program provider for students at the College of Environmental Design. And this evening, we have a career chat, an alumni career chat with two alumni. Very happy to have our guests here. Thank you so much for coming. And also, my colleague Juan Garcia is helping with the tech aspects. Thank you so much, Juan. Really appreciate it. And this evening is essentially like a group informational interview. Basically, we have, if any of you have done informational interviewing, that's where you talk with a professional about the kind of work that they're doing to help you determine whether you'd like to follow the same or a similar path, or to learn about where they work, the nature of that organization, or any kinds of questions about, getting advice for an internship or job search, basically anything career development related where you are gathering information. The focus isn't so much on presenting yourself, although it's nice to be able to give a little synopsis about yourself, but really it's about gathering information, asking questions. And so I welcome your questions. We really would like you to have a chance to ask what you'd like to know about. I have a few questions to start with, and then we will move into giving you a chance to ask any questions that you have. And I have some backup questions too, if you find yourselves running short of ideas. What I'd like to do to start with is if you could put, there are only two students here right now, if you could put in the chat what your major is and what year you are, that would be a nice start. Okay, SED, Sustainable Environmental Design. Thank you, Skylar. And Benita? If you'd like to put your information, that's fine. If you don't, it's also okay. Oh, there we go. Undecided sophomore. Okay, so we have people who are starting out or near, just kind of starting out. Thanks for letting us know that. It's helpful to know who we're talking with. And if you're with a student group and you'd like to put information in the chat about your group, I welcome you to do that. In case there's anybody else here who might like to learn more about your professional, or rather your student organization. And near the end of this program, I'm going to have a poll where I'm going to ask you some questions about what you got from this program. And that's about it. That's my basic intro. And I'm just going to start right into the questions. So, and this is, I'm going to give you a chance, Estrella and Viviana, to introduce yourselves in a general sense, and then we'll move into more specific questions. But what I'd like to ask first is that you each tell us about your current work, the nature of the organization that you're a part of, and your role and responsibilities. And either of you are welcome to start.
I'm happy to start. So my current work is very multifaceted right now. I am a master's student in urban planning at UT Austin, at the University of Texas at Austin, in the School of Architecture, actually. So maybe not too far off from where you all kind of the center where you study. And I also also related to community development, and consult with a nonprofit organization called New Alpha Community Development Corporation, focusing on virtual community engagement, a bit of project management, and advice or advising on community organizing processes. So that's where those are my main kind of work responsibilities these days.
Thank you. Thank you. Viviana?
All right. Hi, everyone. So I currently work at Bank of America. I'm a vice president in community development lending. I've only been with the bank since November, so I'm fairly new to the role, and what I actually really like, or one of the things I'm excited about, is that I'm basically in a training program to be a banker, to be a community development lender. So I have a ton of support from, you know, the market executive and my peers, or we're called relationship managers. I'm basically in training to be a relationship manager. So while I'm a vice president, and that's basically because I've been in the field for 15 years, I've worked in affordable housing. My experience or background in affordable housing finance has been like about 3 years. So I'm really like in a role for the next year, or hopefully 9 months, to learn about how the bank functions, what its risk management system is, and to learn about its clients. And and so ideally, in about a year, I'll be an actual banker, which sounds weird to me, but.
Thank you for sharing that. So you're both kind of in training. You're both in training.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to know more. Actually, I'm going to ask Viviana. So your track where you're training for, how does community development fit in there?
Yeah. So actually, prior to this, I worked at the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development in San Francisco as a project manager. And I did a lot of lending, like underwriting projects, affordable housing projects, mostly for an anti-displacement, anti-gentrification program in San Francisco. And so I did like underwriting, loan closings, and I did work on some like LIHTC, low-income housing tax credit deals, that's like the big national program for financing affordable housing. So I worked on a few deals, and Bank of America is really a leader in that industry. So in 2021 alone, they lent $6.6 billion across the country to build affordable housing. And so California, I work in the West region, which covers everything from California. Texas previously was in it. It just recently moved to the South region. But we basically provide debt, construction debt, and then long-term equity financing to build affordable housing.
Great. Thank you for filling that in.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine people might see, B of A. It's like, what?
Oh, totally. A few years ago, like, I'll save it for later, but 10, 15 years ago, I would have never in a million years thought of myself, thought I'd end up at a bank. Right. So it's interesting how that.
Yeah. It just goes to show that one's path may not be direct, that there's, I think Estrella, you have some things to share around having an indirect path too. So I think it's really helpful for students to know also that, what you decide next isn't going to make your whole career, isn't going to decide the whole future for you. So that's interesting. Thank you. So my next question would be, I would like each of you to share highlights of your career path and how you got where you are today. So that can include what motivated you to move in this direction, and anything that stands out to you, any people that influenced your decisions or your movement, along the way in your path. So Estrella, do you want to start with that?
Sure. And I just hope, I know that I've been in so many panels where I am hearing, or I'm attending panels, or I am hearing from alumni, and it feels so disconnected. So I do hope that this is helpful and connected to what you all are going through. For me, or for highlights, it's interesting that you mentioned people that have helped in the process. In reflecting on what a highlight might be for my career, it would definitely be a mentorship that I experienced and received at my first job out of undergrad. And it was just something that probably the executive director of the nonprofit needed to be able to give me it was not set up. It was nothing formal. It wasn't a mentorship program. It was just something that he identified as kind of on the whim, to be able to train me and then provide some assistance that wasn't supervision. And that was really life-changing and altering, and important for being able to process and reflect and determine next steps in my day-to-day work. So hopefully you can find that or get that somehow. And should I share another highlight or?
Sure, sure.
Okay. Let's see. I mean, I think for me, as Denora mentioned, because I've had a windy path, and perhaps that's just because of what I enjoy. But also, nothing has, like, what I've reflected on and realized, and since I started undergrad about 10 years ago, or when I was in it, started it in 2011, nothing has gone to waste, from whether it was a relationship, like, professional relationship, or it was a training I received. I was a part of, I don't know if it's still around, I sure hope it is, the Cal facilitation team. And it felt that if you were going to be in the Cal facilitation team, you were going to be a professional leadership trainer, or facilitator. And I thought, I have no idea how this is going to circle back. And I have facilitated many workshops since then. I've developed and planned trainings in many parts of the world, and I've helped prepare and facilitate many events. So it's definitely been helpful. And like I said, I mean, I have many or one highlight maybe I can share after Viviana or something, but around just all the kind of relationships coming into all connecting last year, when in a moment when I really didn't have any work, and then suddenly like 3 people were asking me if I could be a consultant for them, and one of them was from an internship I did in undergrad. So nothing goes to waste, nothing has gone to waste, everything's circled back, and it's just been so fun and enjoyable to one, connect with people from the past, and two, just like build skills on top, like one on top of the other.
Great, thank you. It's really interesting about, thank you for the points that you're making about the nature of career development, and that everything serves a purpose, because sometimes people feel like, why did I do that? It was a bad decision, when usually it'll serve some purpose. So that's a really good point. Thank you. So Viviana, do you want to share some highlights of yours?
Sure. I mean, where would I begin? I identified affordable housing as like what I wanted to do from a fairly young age. And it really was like a product of my environment. I grew up in a low-income community just outside of Boston, and it was very urban, very diverse. And, there were a lot of people around me, my family included, that needed help. I think one thing that I can like identify that I was conscious of that set my situation apart from a lot of my peers is that my family owned their home. There was always something about the stability in my home that I always knew I was fortunate to have, because it's not everyone has that. And so when I graduated college, I mean, I veered towards social sciences as an undergrad. I was the first one in my family to go to college and grad school. So I didn't have like a lot of role models to pursue different fields. It really was like what I saw, what I witnessed, what I experienced. And so when I graduated, it wasn't until like I got back home to Boston from New York and I was like, I have to get a job. What do I want to do? That I decided I want to work in affordable housing. And so that's where it started. And yeah, it's been a very windy road, to be honest, and a lot of like trial and error, and a lot of time where I thought like, I don't know what I'm doing, where I'm going, how I'm going to figure it out. And it took a lot of soul searching. And so I worked for a housing finance agency in Massachusetts for a few years before life ended up taking me to Texas for a few years. I worked in Dallas for a nonprofit builder doing community engagement, all kinds of stuff there. I did a year of architecture grad school in Dallas, realized that wasn't for me. But in that year is really where I like gained the confidence and kind of figured out that, I could take more of an active role and figure out what I wanted to do, and that I was able and capable of doing the things I wanted to do. So I applied to grad school, visited every single one, and ended up at Cal because I fell in love with the people, the environment, the program. And I've been in California ever since. It's still been like a path of like figuring out not only like what I wanted to do, what I was good at, but also like what I value and what I want from life. And so that's, yeah, here I am today, but yeah, I'll stop there.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm thinking, let me ask if any of you students who are attending have any questions that you'd like to ask before I ask anything else. You can put it in the chat or you can just unmute. There are no bad questions. So I'm going to continue, and if anything occurs to you, you can put it in the chat or just wait for the next juncture to ask a question. And I guess I'd like to know what your daily work life is like. But also, because I know you've had different roles, if you could talk about sort of the nature of the different roles. I mean, we have only so much time to talk about each thing, right? But maybe from thinking about the roles that you've held, the ones where you've gained skills that you're still using, and just the nature of the day-to-day work that would help shed a light on what community development means. Like for somebody who may not really know what that looks like, it's going to vary, of course. There are plenty of other people on the outside in the world who are doing community development, something under the community development umbrella, but to get more of a sense of what your day-to-day life is like and what it has been in previous roles would be helpful.
I would say so even though I'm in community development lending, my focus really is affordable housing, but like every research class, like data analysis, GIS, those classes have served me really well. Just like learning about the history of community development and affordable housing programs. Just like I've done very different things from, like I said, community engagement, public affairs, direct service work, to now being more in like the finance realm. But a lot of the hard skills that I learned, and I returned to grad school for that focus because I knew that in my undergrad I had kind of shied away from those classes. And so those have definitely served me well. But really like what I realize now, and it's very personal to me, but I think soft skills aren't something that you can necessarily learn in the classroom. And just like, I think, from having empathy and knowing how to work with different people and having exposure to different people. And I think that you can't learn that necessarily in a classroom, and it comes from life experience. And that is something that that I enjoy, that I think in a lot of ways can set you apart from different people. Some people are really good at, sitting and doing research and crunching numbers. But if you can have the people skills and maybe do both, I think that is an art.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a balance of, sure, there's a lot that you can learn in the classroom, but you need to have the outside experience. I mean, that's part of why we encourage people. It's sort of an assumed thing that people are going to gain experience through internships or other kind of, whether it be a part-time job or even volunteer work, to help fill in those gaps so they can get the skills that employers are looking for. Estrella, do you want to speak to the same question?
Yes. mainly, around the day-to-day work. I mean, it's tough to know what to share about that. But maybe so currently my job, or the job I have, it's pretty small, like scale, just because I am in my master's. But one sort of type of job and work that I think can work out well with certain maybe personalities or work styles is independent consulting. And I really enjoyed being able to develop some expertise over some years, and then being able to return to former employers or groups who were wanted an outside perspective. And so anyway, that's consulting. So kind of just side note of like, that's a type of job, both in big consulting firms, but then also independent, maybe as a contractor. And allows you to dabble in a few different things, or even just work remotely or work independently. My other thing, maybe part of what happens in a day-to-day, daily, or what happens often, is a lot of self-initiative, and even being on top of, or being, I would say, on top of my own supervisors sometimes. So what would be a better word might be like managing up. And figuring out that way and that dynamic where you can do that appropriately is important. But that is regularly I need to assess, where are we in the work, where are we in the project, and then appropriately maybe ping or ask for a meeting with someone that is like that I need to speak to, which is usually like the executive director, if it's a nonprofit, or your supervisor. And so, because they are taking care of so many more things. And so sitting around and twiddling my thumbs and being like, they don't care about my work, or they forgot, so I don't need to do it. Like, none of that. I don't do that. And I wouldn't recommend that if you want to achieve your goals or work towards your goals. So, yeah.
Thanks. I was curious specifically about your experience for the city of Los Angeles, for the Historic Highland Park Neighborhood Council. I'm just wondering, if you can say something about that. It seems like it's another kind of experience that maybe people would like to hear about.
Yeah, it definitely was. And maybe Viviana has had something similar. I know you mentioned public affairs. I would consider that in the realm of public affairs or constituent relations. So basically, it was very community development focused. It was a group of elected members of the neighborhood that were volunteering, but official public officials. Sorry. So like official public officials, basically. So you were sworn into the city of Los Angeles to serve on this group called the Neighborhood Council. And on a neighborhood council, and maybe in many places where you live in the now or in the future, there's a neighborhood association, or there's a advisory group to the city. And all of those are great places to develop some skills. No matter what field you're coming from, right? Every neighborhood group or every advisory council or a commission benefits from and needs diverse disciplinary backgrounds. So for me specifically, I served on this board. I'm happy to talk with anyone that wants to reach out and speak with about that kind of task, but it was all focused on helping the community, helping voice the needs and concerns of the community of 33,000 residents to our city council and other departments of the city that needed to hear what was happening at a really local level, and just don't sometimes because of how big the city of Los Angeles is. So that's what we did, and I would say we were doing community development, I think.
Yeah. This is different kind of a life from consulting. It's a, you know, it's more connecting with the people directly, it sounds like.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have a question in the chat. Gladys asks, what piece of advice would you give your undergraduate self? Viviana, do you want to answer that? If you can think back that way far.
Are you calling me old?
No, not at all. Either of you.
I don't know. There was a lot going on for me personally in undergrad, from like court cases that I had to go back home for, the death of someone in my immediate family, and going to college. I went to Columbia University from like not a small town, but I grew up right outside of Boston, but I was exposed to a lot at a young age. But one thing I wasn't exposed to at a young age was like true privilege. And I think that like kind of knocked me off my feet a little bit. I worked really, really hard to succeed, you know, because I was really like in classes with students who had, you know, who could go home and talk to their parents about the book they had read for the third time because they had already read it in high school, kind of thing. So I would just say to my undergrad self is to like it's okay that you're not where, like, you know, we all start at different points, but that won't limit where you can go. Like, we all have different paths in life. It's what's critical is that you believe in yourself and just keep trying, take care of yourself, of your mental health, and believe in yourself first and foremost, and just keep trying as hard as it can get sometimes. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to be the best at everything, to have all the answers. Just keep trying. And eventually, if you like keep asking yourself the tough questions, you know, where, you know, and like reaching for more, like you'll get ahead, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think you're making really good, important points about, I mean, you can compare yourself to other people, and that's usually a kind of a stress-inducing kind of approach. And I've certainly experienced, I've had many students, talk to many students who worry about how they stack up to their peers, and and other students are so far ahead in some way, they've done this, they've done that. And it's really much more helpful to focus on where you are and what you are looking for, and identifying your strengths and what you care most about as well. And I think this is the kind of thing that can carry through your entire life, you know, where you're if you're feeling a little vulnerable, if you're feeling a little lesser than, by comparing yourself to other people, it can not serve you well. And it's better to turn back to yourself and really find some compassion for yourself and patience, and know that if you persist, that you're more likely to get where you want to go. I mean, it's like little steps, and people develop in different ways at different stages. Some people like suddenly shoot off, you know, sort of like a growth spurt, right? At some points, like suddenly, wow, I'm getting some momentum going, and other times they're waiting for something to happen, and, you know, figuring out that balance of really actively pursuing something versus maybe just keeping your eyes open and pausing and waiting to see something may come your way. Like Estrella was talking about how she thought, I don't have anything happening, and then three organizations, I guess, you know, were like, okay, can you help? So anyway, I don't want to take up too much time, but thank you for sharing that. So let me ask each of you to share what you've most enjoyed about your work. What has been most fulfilling, or just on a daily basis, what parts of your work have you most enjoyed, and what skills have you most enjoyed using?
For me, a lot of my work has been bringing people together for meetings, group meetings, community meetings, listening to people's experiences and their needs and dreams, and working with them over like the course of over the course of a period. So that's been in my current work where I'm gathering people virtually that are in the state of South Carolina. That's where that nonprofit is. Or when I was a community organizer in New Jersey. And so from then till now, I think just creating a space for me in terms of community, that where I see that people are at ease and understand what's happening in the group, and can feel heard, or feel like they have a purpose there, and are acknowledged in some way. And so I say that, I mean, that's just I think your question was what have I enjoyed? I mean, I think that what that means is what I enjoy is seeing something that that is a goal and a value in my work really come to life, which is that inclusion, which is an important foundation to being able to work together as a group, and then ultimately work towards and achieve your goal. So, yeah. Oh, you're on mute, Denora.
It speaks to the importance of living your values, or of getting to express your values, and how that can make such a difference in your satisfaction at work. And if you're in an organization where the values of the organization conflict with yours, or you're working with people who seem to have very different values, it can just create friction and stress. And so it's good to pay attention to tune in to yourself and recognize what is what's important to you. So thanks for sharing that. That's great. Viviana.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think you both hit it on the head. Figuring out, repeat the question just so I don't.
Yeah. Just what have you enjoyed? Which aspects of your work have you most enjoyed? Which skills have you most enjoyed using?
And I spoke to this a little bit earlier, but I think like ultimately it is like living my values. Like I want to help people, I care about people, and want to build affordable housing where people can live, in the long term. And I think some of my meandering in my career until recently, it's really led me to figure out that what my values are, what I want, like not only like, I think for a long time, for example, like I because of my background and my upbringing, I almost felt like I needed to suffer, like live, I was working doing the grassroots community development stuff, and that is valuable, it's valid, there's a lot of need for that, of course. But there was some like ingrained like guilt, like again, like I needed to suffer because my background, my previous generations or people around me are suffering. And it took like I said, I never would have thought, I think 10 years ago, and I mean, I started my career during the foreclosure crisis. So I would like, a lot of my initial work being like the low person on the totem pole was like looking through loan documents and seeing like, these people, loan documents where people had been duped into these mortgages that they were never going to be able to pay for. And so, yeah, I saw, like for a long time, I mean, I'm very liberal in my political beliefs, and just never saw myself working for like a big bank. But like, as I've, shed my layers, and like realized like what I enjoy doing, and learning that I can do what I love from a place that'll also allow me to advance economically. That is something that's important to me. And so I've, so that's like something that I just urge people to think about, what they value, what they want out of life, and how they can merge the two together in a way that works for them.
Yeah, I think that's so profound. I mean, that's what people struggle with. Do what you love, the money will follow kind of idea, but the whole thing of your family upbringing, how much it influences how you feel about what your place is in the world and what you're entitled to, or, I must stay in this zone. I can't actually expand. Who are you? Are you somehow betraying your people, or your family, or whatever? And the idea that being able to merge the two is a way of actually honoring your upbringing in a way. It's just different anyway. I'm sort of over interpreting properly, but but I think it just speaks to, these are things that people grapple with, and it's very real. It's not just like, oh, that looks like a good job, I'm going to jump there. It's very like external. It's very like you deal with stuff, when you're making these decisions. And I think students can really probably relate to this, and many students can relate to this if if you come, regardless of your background, just the whole idea of who are you working for, and what is your value, all these kinds of questions that I think people grapple with. And when you encounter people who have come from very different backgrounds, it's sort of like, you're feeling this juxtaposition of your experience with theirs, and it brings up questions. So I think it's interesting how you both have tried things, or done work where you encounter people who are similar, people who are different, I'm guessing, and it sort of helps you figure out what's important to you, or where you fit. Does that feel true?
Yeah, that does feel true. And I think realizing how long you can handle a place where you don't feel like happy or satisfied with your employer. I don't know how much I thought about that in undergrad. Probably not a lot, but I think you'll come across it as you start to find a job in the future, maybe you won't know until you're in that position, but it'll help you from job to job start to kind of narrow down that list, or think about narrow down the list of the type of places that you would like to work in, or you enjoy working in, or you feel like you can shine the most, right? And you can really thrive and grow, shine and grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've also wrestled with the economic question. I thought I was going to, I didn't realize that I could be in like a position where I earned more money, and not that I'm like completely there yet, but I definitely had my eyes open to it at not too long ago as well. And that was coming from a community development, specifically in this field of community development. You think that you can't make more than a certain amount. But I think there are options out there, and there's now more nonprofit organizations that are thinking very critically about pay and living wage, and kind of just compensation for their employees. So I think there's, speaking of trends, that is evolving, and hopefully that can also be a reflection of like maybe what you choose in terms of a job or a place to work, right? And even in that pay of like how much do you value, also may say how well they treat the people that they work with. Not a 1-for-1, but just something to think about.
Yeah, it's a two-way street. It's not just, oh, can I get the job there, but do I want to work there? Do I feel a good connection with the people? It's important to remember that it's a two-way street, and you have a right to assess like a fit from your own perspective too.
Mm.
Yeah. It occurred to me that maybe you might have advice about looking for work, looking for whether it be internships or jobs. If you have any from your own experience, how you went about looking for opportunities, and any aspect of the application process or interviewing, or is there anything you'd like to share about that?
Viviana,
I think I think the market has evolved so much. Like when I first looked for a job, I literally like found an organization that I wanted to work for and applied on their website, and you know, they called me and I went in. And while of course that still holds true, I've realized in my career the importance of like who you know and how you market yourself. And so I would advise, I know Estrella mentioned mentors, keeping in touch with people who are willing to help you, and not being afraid to not, the right word isn't to boast, but to advertise, market yourself on like LinkedIn, and reach out to people through there, through connections that you have, because I mean, I would say it's 50-50 for me, like whether I've applied to a job and just got it from applying or through a connection that I had. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for emphasizing the importance of connecting. Estrella?
I think I'm still learning what works. What I am seeing lately is that there are that the LinkedIn groups, I think the Cal alumni, like all the Cal alumni platforms, that those are important places to be looking and to be reaching out, to be using as a tool to connect with people. And if you can get on like Google Groups or listservs where jobs are shared, that's another place to look. And then even putting out the feelers to maybe contacts that feel like your advocates. So maybe it's a professional or a professor, where you can just say, hey, just letting you know, like I'm going to be looking, or I'm looking for something for next year. If you hear of anything, would you mind letting me know? And that's been something I've been trying out for this summer. We'll see how it goes. But generally, you know, there's someone who already likes you and you've seen how you work. They're another set of ears and eyes that are out there for you. And just one, I thought of something I really wanted to share in terms, and I guess it's advice, and it's also about marketing yourself. The sooner you can figure out the words to describe your strengths and the type of work that you know how to do, I think the better. Like I do project management. Great. The minute I figured that out, it was super helpful. And so maybe it's super basic, but I'm constantly trying to figure out the words to describe what I know how to do. So there's that. And then the other thing is knowing like the field that where your type of work may be happening. Okay, so my type of work happens it kind of does happen in the consulting field, and I'm just learning that at EY, Ernst & Young, which I didn't even know before. Or my type of work happens in like certain government agencies. Anyway, so yeah, just knowing like kind of what are the realms and fields or sectors where and what were some of the majors in an environmental design major may be needed. And so just studying that a little bit, I think helps.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think what you said about letting people know that you're looking, really good point. Unless they know, they won't know look for you or to keep you in mind. And that's one of the benefits of doing informational interviewing, is when you make a connection with somebody and you have a good rapport, and you don't have to know what you want to do at that point. I mean, sure, you're working towards figuring that out. So if you don't know yet, that's fine. You're gathering that information, but hopefully you can make a good impression and have a good connection, so that if you gain more clarity, you can then say, I've decided I'm moving in this direction. If you happen to find any opportunities or come across any opportunities, if you could share them with me, that would be really helpful. Or if you know more clearly and you're talking to people more about what's it like to work at your organization, and what do you think are the most important skills and experiences that your type of employer is looking for, then you can work on for yourself, knowing how to articulate that. Okay, what from my experience can I really hone so that I can tell people that I have this background, these skills, this experience, so that you can communicate that, and then it kind of builds on itself, and you eventually you get to find out about more opportunities. So partly it's the information gathering, you make connections, you make good people think well of you, you maintain those connections, you ask for help without saying, do you have a job for me? It's not like that. It's like any advice or do you know anybody who might be hiring? Do you have any suggestions for how I should handle this or that situation? It's if you start building your network early,
Uh-oh. She froze for me.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, Denora, you froze for a moment, but you're back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I didn't look frozen to me.
Okay.
Who knew? So, let's see. Right. So, and it is important to research the field. I mean, that's part of why, we're having these alumni career chats. So you're learning about, okay, what's it really like to do this? And what kinds of skills should I be developing or considering, or, and, oh, are these people that I can talk to, and find out more from? So I'm noticing the time, and I want to know if anybody out there among you students, if you have any questions that I haven't asked that you really were hoping to have answered, anything you're curious about Viviana's or Estrella's experience or knowledge or insights, please feel free to put it in the chat or to unmute and ask your question. And while you're thinking about that, I will ask Viviana and Estrella, is it okay for people to contact you on LinkedIn? Great. So that,
yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good. So they could reach out to you and say, oh, I have this question or that question, or I just want, I came to this program and could I ask you a few more questions to learn more about your experience or ask your advice, that kind of thing. Great. So those of you out there know that you can contact these lovely people.
Anyone who may watch the video later.
Right, exactly. Right. Anybody.
There's so much. Yeah, I'm just gonna say there's so much that I think both Viviana and I didn't talk about from our journey. So you might see like something that we did on there that we could talk more about or focus more on.
Right. Yeah, definitely look them up on LinkedIn. And if you don't have a LinkedIn account or profile, we have resources on the Career Center website, and you can come meet with me. I can help you with that. So you have resources and services to help you with this process too. What I'd like to do now is put out a poll and ask you to fill out this poll, and it'll just take a minute or two. And then we can see, if you have other last questions that come up while this is going on, you can put them in the chat or ask them. So can everybody see the poll? Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
We shouldn't answer it, right?
No. You will skew the results.
Yeah, I exited it.
Yeah, to say that this is essentially an informational interview. We've been doing, kind of a group interview, and So we have had two responses. If there's a third person who wants to respond, great. Okay, cool. And if there's something that, if you're like feeling, I don't know if I can conduct an informational interview, I'm feeling unsure, even though it looks like you're all likely or very likely to do so, then you can come get help with that process. You are not alone. And this is something that people do all the time, asking, making connections with alumni. And that's the wonderful thing, is that alumni especially like to, can you see the results?
Yes.
Okay. Alumni like to help students for the most part. They were in your place once before in your position, and they like to help people.